today. UFC 319 goes down this weekend in Chicago, where in the main event, Dricus Du Plessis steps into the octagon with the Wolf, Khamzat Chimaev, for the Middleweight Championship of the world. What's going to happen? Will Dricus Du Plessis continue his just one-of-a-kind style and go out there and push Khamzat to the limit and eventually get the man so tired, weather that storm, and go out there and win a 5-round decision against the Wolf? Can he get Khamzat Chimaev so tired that eventually he is able to pull him to the ground and finish the man? If he doesn't finish him on the feet. Or will the Wolf, Khamzat Chimaev, go out there, ragdoll our champion, Dricus Du Plessis, drag him to the ground, break the lower half of his jaw like he did Robert Whittaker, and choke him into a submission? Or will the Wolf, Khamzat Chimaev, beat Dricus Du Plessis, our champion, on the feet? All of these questions, all of these things we need to know. This is my most anticipated fight of 2025 thus far, and we about to get into it on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we are on the precipice of UFC 319. We're in the main event. Dricus Du Plessis will step in the octagon with Khamzat Chimaev for the middleweight championship of the world. I'm super excited about this fight. I really like this card. I like a lot of fights on this card. Today, we're only going to talk about the main event, but I'm going to be right back with you, dropping off another video, dropping it like it's hot, breaking down the other fights on this card. But let's get to the main event. Dricus Du Plessis still knocks, your middleweight champion of the world. What a career this man has had so far. He enters into the UFC as kind of a quirky, kind of a weird guy, you know what I'm saying? He had a different type of style of dress. It was a little bit flashy, a little bit sporty, a little bit swaggy. Looked a lot different than the regular fighters that go out there wearing Rock Under Armour gear or Venom gear, you know, or go out there dressed in clothes that look like they got it from Ross, dressed for less, you know what I'm talking about? Bro, Dricus looked a little bit different. He had on aviator shades at one press conference. I mean, the dude looked a little bit different, right? South African dude, started the entire controversy over the first or real African champion that set Israel Adesanya and Kamaru Usman off. Usman has since then, you know, kind of let all of that go. He's kind of gotten cool with Dricus Du Plessis. Israel Adesanya got himself smashed in a main event fight with Dricus Du Plessis. Got choked out, choked into oblivion. He tapped. I was happy. And Dricus Du Plessis retained his championship against him. Izzy and Usman, because they're the soft little brothers, they pulled Francis Ngannou, the big brother, into the battle. There was no need for him to come into it. He's never said anything negative against Dricus Du Plessis. It was clearly they just wanted, you know, bigger guns just in case something went down. Not really. I'm joking. But still, Francis had nothing to do with it. Y'all two got a little emotional, felt a little salty. Francis never felt salty. I've never seen an interview or anything where he downed the man. Nevertheless, Dricus Du Plessis came in with almost a primitive or barbaric style that he used to utilize in the octagon and still does in a way. But now we understand his goal and what he's trying to achieve with that fighting style more. But this dude, he would come in, he's going at his opponents with lead hooks, he's spamming body kicks, he's spamming high kicks, he's just doing weird spins and everything. And then by halfway through the second round, homie was gassed out. He was done. But somehow he would always push through. Then we had Nosegate. What is Nosegate? Nosegate is, Dricus Du Plessis said he had his nose broken so many times, so much scar tissue built up within his nose that he could no longer breathe out of it properly. This was due to his career in kickboxing, right? So his first few fights, when he'd get criticized about gassing out, he was telling everybody, I just can't, I can only breathe through my mouth. I can't breathe through my nose. We're all like, Dricus, shut up. We never heard of that before, but cool flex. And what ends up happening is he goes and gets some sort of a rhinoplasty. He goes and gets some sort of a nose surgery to correct this issue. And then all of a sudden, what do we have? He really doesn't have better cardio. Slightly better, but mainly he's still doing what he used to do. And that is when he hits that wall where he's completely gassed and tired, when most mere men would stop, Dricus Du Plessis is not a mere man. He pushes through and puts the pedal to the metal and keeps driving, even though the car is on E. It's running on fumes. Similar to my guy, Alexandre Pantoja. When he gets tired, you can see that he's tired. You can see that he's gassed, but the man will not quit, and he pushes through. Right? And we're watching Dricus Du Plessis rack up win after win. And some of them, it was a given. We knew he was going to win. Like when he faced and defeated Darren Till. Right? But then when he goes in there against the Reaper, Robert Whittaker, regarded as maybe the fourth or third best middleweight of all time at that time. You had Izzy and you had Anderson Silva, right? And you see Dricus Du Plessis go out there and put a hurting on Robert Whittaker and defeat him. I made a video building up, or I made a video previewing that card, that pay-per-view card. And I remember sunning Dricus and just being like, I don't even know why they did this fight, because we know Robert Whittaker is going to win. And when Dricus beat Robert Whittaker that night, that was when I became a huge Dricus Du Plessis fan, because that's when I got it. Like, I somewhat began, I had a theory on what he was doing with his style. My theory is that, yeah, his style of fighting is ugly, if you want to call it that. Yeah, his style of fighting is unorthodox. Yeah, he's going to have lead uppercuts. Yeah, he's going to throw a left when he probably should have finished with a right. The dude is wild. Yeah, he's got long flicking jabs, like he's just flicking it out there, right? He's got regular jabs, he's got flicking jabs, he's got off-balance jabs. This dude is wild, right? He gets tired, he pushes through, he keeps going, right? That's what I thought his style was. It was my assumption, but I didn't really know. He then would go on to defeat Sean Strickland, at that time the current middleweight champion, become the middleweight champion, and then go on to face his arch nemesis, his arch rival, Israel the Stylebender Adesanya. And he goes out there in one of my favorite fights, of all time, because everything was on the line, including the bragging rights of an entire country. And Dricus Du Plessis went out there and showed everyone what a lot of us had always known. That wasn't the same Izzy that first entered into the octagon. This dude had fame, he had wealth, and he was absorbed by self, right? And he just wasn't really that dude no more. And you could tell Eugene Behrman has alluded to Izzy's lackluster preparation on some of his, maybe his last 4 fights or so, right? And that's what Israel Adesanya fans don't want to talk about. Your guy let y'all down. And I enjoyed it when Dricus took his back, put that arm underneath of his throat, cinched it in, and made this man tap on the grand stage. The fight for Africa, as I dubbed it. He made this man tap. It was outstanding. And Dricus Du Plessis what do you want to say about the man? You know, he has made his way through the middleweight division. He's the champion. He hasn't taken an L yet in the octagon. And if he continues this, he could eclipse Israel Adesanya eventually. Maybe even Anderson Silva. And this is a guy that I still watch MMA YouTubers and MMA pundits, like a couple people on MMAfighting.com, that still don't get why his style is so great. They still make fun of how he looks doing his style, right? But they're not understanding that style is so awkward, so sloppy, so bowl and shoe ugly that it works. And other fighters can't figure it out. And the ferocity that he uses on throwing his rights and lefts, just straight combinations that are a little bit off balance, a little bit off center, not the most accurate, but he throws. And then you never know when he's going to drop to a takedown, expertly timed takedowns, get you to the ground and pound you out or submit you. This dude is a threat. On the other side, we've got the Wolf Khamzat Chimaev, right? A man that looked like Khamzat Chimaev looked like you and your family went picnicking in a forest one day, and then off in the distance through the early morning mist as you're hiking to a point in this forest that you can have this picnic around lunchtime with your wife and your children, and you kind of see something off in the distance in the mist, and it's kind of a little bit foggy, and you don't know it's that morning dew, and you don't really know what that is, but something is looming forward, and for a split second you think, oh my God, is that Bigfoot? Is that a Sasquatch? No, it's not. It's the Wolf, Khamzat Chimaev, and he's coming for you and your family. And you'll never see the light of day again. That's it. They'll never find you again. Your other family that's not there with you, they don't know what happened to you. They just know that y'all packed up a basket and went to the forest one day and you never returned because you were a victim of Khamzat Chimaev. Now, with Khamzat, way different. Khamzat comes to us sometime during that time period when we was all locked in the house, right? And we couldn't go nowhere. You know what I'm talking about. Khamzat shows up during that time, back when it was called Fight Island, talking about the UFC Apex. I'm sorry. I apologize about that. He shows up at Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. You know what I'm saying? Now they just go to Abu Dhabi and do shows, but back then it was Fight Island. And we were into it, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, at the end of the day, this dude went out there. He rattled off two wins in like a 10-day period. Might have been an 8-day period. The UFC kind of shelves him for a while. He would eventually come back, face Gilbert Burns. He looked really, really good in that fight at the beginning, but Gilbert began to put it on him at the end. And Khamzat weathered the storm, but just barely. He just barely got out of that fight. His coaches have talked about that he did a little bit more brawling than what they expected. He wasn't showing the skill that he possessed. In a way, Gilbert Burns kind of lured him into a brawl. The thing about Khamzat is I'm really reflecting on it now. The man has had so many extreme highs in his career. So many extreme highs in the octagon. He hasn't had any extreme lows in the octagon, but in his real life, physically, from a health standpoint, he has had multiple extreme lows. The man's immune system is made of tissue paper. You know what I'm saying? His immune system, it's not solid granite. It's not concrete. It's not steel. It's not titanium. It's Jello. That's his immune system. So he had all these complications left over from that reason, that virus that had us all locked in the house for a while. He had a lot of issues with that. He had a lot of other autoimmune issues, and it seems like every time they would book a fight for the man, he would get sick and he couldn't make it. Up until at least once, maybe twice now, he talked about retiring because he felt like his body was quitting on him. Once he talked about it, he thought he was about to die, right? Yet, he makes another return to the octagon. He goes in there with former welterweight kingpin, former welterweight champion, but at middleweight. I got to mention the fact that the man fought most of his career at welterweight, right? Until a huge weight miss where he was supposed to fight Nate Diaz. It got switched around. He ended up fighting Kevin Holland. He demolished him. It was a horrible weight miss. He missed by like 8 or 9 pounds. Something crazy. He then is forced to move up to middleweight. He already had a middleweight fight where he basically killed GM3, Gerald Meerschaert. And it's like, so it looked like middleweight was his new home. He makes a return to the octagon. He faces Kamaru Usman at middleweight on short notice. And the first round, he looked like a world beater. He looked like the world beater we had all been waiting for, that is Chimaev. Second round, by the end of it, Usman is making a comeback. By the third round, you're like, if this had another round, Usman's going to beat Chimaev. That's what we was looking at, right? He would eventually make let's skip ahead. How about the fight with Robert Whittaker, which was his last fight? Now, this was a fight that a lot of us were touting or wondering. We were saying, even though Robert lost to Dricus, I didn't like how Chimaev looked in his last fight. And I think Robert Whittaker can go out there and beat him. And then the next thing you know, the fight begins. Chimaev takes the man down, gets on his back, and breaks the man's face. Robert Whittaker's face broke in half from the upper jaw down. Like literally his whole lower jaw fell off on the floor, right? Teeth was shoved back up into his throat, bro. I mean, the force of Chimaev to do that. Robert Whittaker said that it was a pre-existing dental injury, some sort of surgery he needed to have done. Don't put that on that. Don't put that on that. It was the Wolf Chimaev shattered your whole face with his forearm when he cinched up that choke. Bro, so now we're here. Right? We've been waiting. We thought that this was going to happen when we seen this man beat 2 men in the span of 8 days. We was like, this dude's going to be a champion. When we saw him running through people time and time again, we thought this dude's going to be a champion. Then we saw him against Usman, and we was like, first we saw him against Gilbert Burns. We was like, I don't know. I think it's going to work, but I don't know. Then we saw him against Usman, and we was like, bro, he almost lost to Usman off the couch. I don't know about these championship, aspirations. Then we see him against Robert Whittaker, and he broke the man's lower jaw. And we're like, okay, wait a minute, we might be working with something. Now we're here, Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. And this fight can go any number of ways. But my pick to win this middleweight championship fight is Dricus Still Knocks Du Plessis. I believe that there's definitely a world where Khamzat Chimaev goes out there and dominates Dricus in round 1. And I can see Dricus taking to the stool, looking at his team, kind of being like, well, we got that out the way. And then them beginning their game plan. Because one thing I think is not talked about enough is the game planning of Du Plessis' team. And I have a feeling that they will go out there, probably take a L the first round and get dominated. I believe that they will go out there the second round. I say they being, I'm speaking on Dricus and his team, even though it's only Dricus in the octagon. I believe Dricus will go out there in the second round, attack Chimaev on the feet with the fury, with a passion early on in the second round, but that's a decoy. That's just to amp up Chimaev and get him to expand more energy, either fighting on the feet or trying to take Du Plessis down to the ground. And if he does get him down, I believe that Du Plessis will be able to weather that storm again on the ground for the second round. Then I think in the third is when Du Plessis really starts to step up, ramp up the striking, may even have his own takedown attempt involved in there, his movement, and just the sheer brute force that he implements that is just, it's beautiful while it's ugly at the same time. It's a great thing to see. And I think that is once again another decoy to get Chimaev to expand what remaining energy he has left. Even if Dricus has to lose in that third round again. And then I think the fourth and fifth round, Dricus Du Plessis will put such a pace on Chimaev. Chimaev has never had to go that full 5-round distance. And I think that 25 minutes, and I think Du Plessis in round 4 and 5 will put on such a pace on Chimaev that he will wilt under the pressure. I don't think Dricus will finish Chimaev because he's just going to finish him, because he can knock out Chimaev, because he's that good on the feet. I think he will finish Khamzat Chimaev because Chimaev will wilt due to lack of stamina, lack of gas, and expanding all of that energy the first 3 rounds. There's something to be said for fighters that have a fight in the bag and they're dominating their opponent and they're just in that moment. I'm doing it. It's happening. I'm beating this guy. I've been training for this for 8 weeks. This is it. I'm defeating this guy. I'm manhandling this dude. I'm going to win. And then the tables turn. And that adrenaline dump when you realize, he's not out of here. He's not done. And he got his second wind. And I think that's what Chimaev is going to experience. Now, I could definitely see, I could see a world where Khamzat dominates Dricus and easily wins this fight, but in a way I can't. That's the aura, in a word that gets overused by young people nowadays. That's the aura that Still Knox has, because you know that Chimaev could dominate anybody, but for some reason I just don't see him dominating Dricus to a win or a finish. I see him dominating Dricus until he gasses out. Because I believe, similar to what Fluffy Hernandez did to Roman Dolidze in the second round, where he waved him on, he caught him on, he made that masculine, that masculinity come out of Dolidze. And Dolidze had to match that fury and try to challenge Fluffy, and the next thing you know, he's gassed in about 3 minutes of the second round. You know what I'm saying? I could definitely see that. So, my pick to win the main event of UFC 319 and retain his middleweight championship is Dricus Still Knox Du Plessis. Please like, subscribe, comment, let me know who you got in the main event. Do you think Dricus is going to pull this off, or do you think that Khamzat Chimaev will achieve his destiny to be the champion of the UFC, in this case, the middleweight champion? Please let me know what you think. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.